Welcome back, everyone, to the Alaska Huskies franchise here on NHL 22. Special episode here today. We are meeting the team. What players did Peter Vaskie acquire through tryout and open team tryout, through scouting department? Who did they sign through free agency across the hockey world? We'll have international prospects, we'll have American prospects, we'll have Canadian prospects. We got the whole 9 yards covered here on this roster. We're going to talk about every single player, including the bench players, including the guys that are not going to be dressed from a night-to-night basis. So let's get into it. Let's dive right in. And make sure you guys stick around till the end because I will be talking about the upload schedule. I'll ask you guys for your feedback in the comment section, what you would like to see, as well as format, because I'm thinking I kind of want to do a little user game in here, plus CPU versus CPU. So have a little format suggestion, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video. We'll start with the wingers and then move to centers, move back to defensemen, and then talk about the goaltenders that are going to be made up of this team. Practices have been done, the tryouts have been done, the roster has been set. What players did Peter Vaskie and the Alaska Huskies organization decide we're going to be taking on that uniform and being representative of the city of Anchorage and the beautiful state of Alaska? Let's talk about each player. We're going to start with the left winger here, Brock Kiesler from Scottsdale, Arizona. He probably would have had a chance to meet and play with his favorite player ever, which is Phil Kessel. An interesting story that happened to Brock Kiesler was on his way into the stadium before the tryouts were occurring. He actually saw Phil Kessel cleaning out his locker. As you know, the Arizona Coyotes players were disbanded and had to move elsewhere across the NHL. He had his opportunity. He has his chance, finally, to talk to and kind of pick the brain of his favorite player of all time. And I'd like to think Kiesler got something out of those conversations. Yes, he felt like he was bothering him a little bit. Guys just having to move everything, pick up and move now that the organization is moving in a different direction. It's a sticky situation, but you know, as a youngster like that, as a youngster like Brock Kiesler is, you really can't let those opportunities go by you. And Phil Kessel was obviously gracious enough to pay it forward in a sense. So good on Phil Kessel, good for Brock Kiesler. Hopefully the Alaska Huskies can pull a little bit of Phil Kessel's game back into Brock Kiesler. John Borhoft, an 18-year-old right winger, 5'10" playmaking specialist, kind of a little bit like Pavel Datsyuk. Do I want to compare him to one of the great stick handlers across the NHL? Probably not, but he does model his game after an assist machine like Pavel Datsyuk. He loves focusing on assisting his teammates and wants what's best for the team. Quote, "I just want to come in and do my job. I don't want to take any of these situations for granted. My hockey road has been long, twisted, and winding. I'm thankful to finally be here and on a roster, and I want to make the most of it. Whatever I can do to help the team, that's going to be my number one goal. I ultimately want to bring a winning culture to this franchise." How about this guy? Atticus Barnaby, a 19-year-old forward/center. He does have dual positionality. 6'2", he's a little bit of a bigger guy. Power forward archetype, so he is going to be using his body and throwing it around on the ice, but he does have some offensive skill as well. He's actually royalty. Yes, you heard this correctly. He's way down the line of succession that it's just almost not worth even mentioning, but he mentions it every chance that he gets. And honestly, anytime you can get a player with that type of attitude, you like those big goon type of players that are going to be tossing their body around and letting you know that they're there. Atticus Barnaby, solid player. Looking forward to seeing how he does with Alaska. The next two players we're going to talk about at right winger are probably my two favorite names on the entire team. Let's start with Leon Riegelwood, an 18-year-old right winger from St. Paul, Minnesota. The hockey factory out there. Growing up in Minnesota has always been his great escape. Coming across as an unmotivated player on the defensive side, his true talent comes in setting up teammates and scoring goals. At the age of 16, he was body checked into the glass and broke his jaw. Now he plays with a lot more care and can be a little bit passive at times in going in for the puck, but he hopes that with the Huskies, this can be his chance, and maybe his only chance, to make it into the NHL and accomplish his dreams. As I mentioned, the next player that I love, the name at least, Matthew Hawk, or in other words, what they like to call him, Murder Hawk. It's a guy that's going to be throwing his body around, much like Atticus Barnaby does. But the thing with Matthew Hawk is that he's not as offensively gifted as Atticus Barnaby is. We're kind of thinking that Matthew Murderhawk is going to be an aggressive type of guy. He's not going to be a dude that is going to score a lot of goals. He does like to be aggressive, though, when going into the net, when trying to score goals. He's one of those dudes that thinks he might be better than he really is. Offensively, at least. Defensively, physicality, he's got it all. He's got the makings of a true enforcer, but he labels himself more as a power forward. He thinks he's all that and then some. Hopefully Matthew Murderhawk doesn't become a cancer on the team that we end up regretting having him on the ice. The next winger we're going to talk about is Aiden Oliver. He is 17 years old and standing 6'4". He is a big dude. And the good thing about Aiden Oliver, he's offensively gifted. Speed, passing, shot accuracy, agility, acceleration. He has got it all athletically. The one thing with Aiden Oliver is he's got to tone it back a little bit. He's got to know when to shoot the puck. He's got to not be so pushed by the adrenaline. He's got to get tamed a little bit, kind of like a wild Mustang. But Aiden Oliver has an interesting little backstory here. At 2 years old, he was left by his parents. His parents didn't want anything to do with him. He would grow up inside a hockey family, utilizing that aggression, that fuel for the fire, and walked onto the Clemson hockey team. Born in Greenville, Texas, he stayed in Greenville, Texas, found his love for hockey with the Dallas Stars, threw himself onto the Clemson hockey team, which is not necessarily a hockey factory per se, but Aiden Oliver has impressed scouts by his determination, his leadership, and his youth, combined with his physicality and his skill sets. He should be a solid player for us for a long time to come. I'm anxious to see how Aiden Oliver does for the Huskies. We're saving the two best forwards for last. We're going to start with Vidar Lasnedal, a Norwegian right winger, 20 years old, 6'4". He's a sniper. At least that's what a lot of people and scouts want to classify him as. The thing with Vidar Lasnedal is he has always had the potential to be a great player in a lot of people's minds, simply not just because of the size, but because he's a great shooter. The problem with Vidar Lasnedal has always been his ability to not control the puck. So if you do get it to him, awesome. You might have a 50-50 chance of him actually getting the shot off because his puck control has been that bad. However, the speed, the agility, the body control, everything aligned perfectly to signal that Lasnedal should be better than he really is. He really just needed some taming. He really needed some training. Somebody put him under their wing and really coach him up. But being from Norway, he kind of got the raw end of the deal. A lot of people, a lot of scouts just don't really look at Norway for the hockey players that it produces. So therefore, he was never really scouted that intensely. He also picked up an ACL injury, which occurred while he was playing and practicing. By 2021, although he was considered to be a part of the NHL draft, he wasn't even picked for the 2021 IIHF World Championship Norwegian squad due to his severe knee problems that were still present, and thus was crossed off nearly every single draft board. However, despite all of the negative reviewing that he was getting about his injury, Vidar's agent would actually convince him that he would be drafted, and quote, "Everything I got from Washington is that you're going to be drafted at 176, which was a dream come true for Vidar since Alexander Ovechkin was his idol." It came to be that Drew Krebs was drafted at the 176 spot to Washington, hanging on to some last-minute hope at 224. Tampa Bay would be on the clock, and they would also pass on Vidar Lasnedal. Feeling as if his dreams were shattered, of course, the last-minute addition of the Alaska Huskies renewed this hope inside of Vidar. Knowing full well that this may be Vidar's last opportunity to make a statement about his game before hanging up the skates, he put on a show in the private tryouts. In fact, Peter Vaskie was so impressed that he had to go to the media to talk about Vidar Lasnedal's performance. Said, quote, "From what I've seen on these two rinks, he's the best player with a shot and can skate like any NHL player I've ever seen. I don't give a damn if he doesn't have puck skills yet. This guy's a hidden gem that you're not seeing. I do. I love this player. He is a for sure fire to make the roster." We talked about Vidar. Let's talk about the next best player in the forward room, Taylor Jett. Now, just like as the name would imply, he's a speed demon on the ice. He's 18 years old. He's young, 6'4", 255 sniper, born in Dearborn, Michigan. This guy has all the makings, all the potential in the world to be a franchise-altering type of player, just like Vidar. Only thing with Taylor Jett is, there's always some pros and cons here. The guy was a figure skater at some point. So does he have some moves? Yes. Does he know how to skate? Yes. That's the big thing. However, his mother remarried and married a hockey enforcer. So his new dad had to toughen him up a little bit. No offense out there to figure skaters. There's a lot of good ones out there. But Taylor Jett was able, in his youth, to combine what he knows about the technicalities of skating, about the nutrition, about getting right, about being able to be one with the ice as an Olympic figure skater. But now, understanding the game of hockey thanks to his new dad, his stepdad, there became a beautiful combination of precise skating and strength that makes him an unstoppable force for this team, for Alaska. I'm looking forward to Taylor Jett and seeing what he's going to be able to do. And at such a young age, at 18, he's going to be a player for a long time in that Husky blue. Let's now move to the center, one being Jusip Konstantinov, a 22-year-old, 6'5", 250-pounder. This guy's a big dude. He's going to be really tough on that grind line, or we're going to call it the mush line because of the Huskies. Pun definitely intended. Born of Russian and Estonian parents, he was a big guy. He was the oldest of 5 and would usually pick on all of his siblings. He learned to play hockey at the age of 8 and would always take the opportunity to injure as many people as possible. He was a bully, just plain and simple. College scouts loved his aggressiveness, and he could shoot a bullet from the blue line. Jusip was scouted by the likes of St. Cloud and Notre Dame, but the only problem with him is his actions off the ice. He was generally a dirtbag to others, and nobody on his local team liked him. He settled for Vermont as a catamount, but with constant suspensions from behavior, he was off the team by his junior year. Jusip dropped out and decided to play in a local league in Montpelier. Still being in a little bit of an a-hole, his ego was a little too high and he decided to try out for some AHL teams, some teams liking his flow, but others did not. The question is, did Peter Vaskie like it? Apparently he does. He feels like this team needs a little bit of grit and grind. We don't really have that much with our wingers. Jusip Konstantinov will be a bully on the ice. He's really going to be more of that enforcer style of center, a guy that's just going to get in and get dirty with the faceoffs and try to win those battles, because this is a team that's going to need as many puck possessions as they can get. Let's talk about the next center, Trenton Grell, another 18-year-old. So again, Huskies team is very young. Finally, we get a good two-way forward. Guy that can play both offense and defense, very well-rounded, doesn't necessarily excel at one particular area, but Trenton Grell is going to be that third to fourth line type of center that's just going to get in and kind of do his job and play both ends of the ice. The thing with Trenton Grell is he's mostly a baseball player. He actually grew up in love with baseball. He played it for years and years until, come about middle school, he suffered an injury to his throwing arm, so he was held off the diamond for the remainder of his career. So he decided to see what his school had to offer, and hockey was the best option, seeing as the players that were on the low side, talent-wise, he signed up. He took a chance. He worked on it for months, learning the game, and it wasn't until 2 years in that the team actually came to fruition. His puck skills and strength, and the way he's aware on the rink was amazing. Scouts were impressed. Trenton Grell would move up the board in the draft. However, another injury to his arm would keep teams away from Trenton Grell as an 18-year-old. They felt like he needed to get that right, get himself right. He's got a young body. He needs to take care of it. He sets the tone on the third line and fourth line. I'm anxious to see how Trenton progresses. As an 18-year-old, I'm really excited about his future. And last but not least, on the center side of things, we have a dual position player, Seth Colley. He's a center/winger, 5'11", so he's a little on the shorter side, but he's kind of like in that John Borhoff type of mold. He's a playmaking type of center, which is something that this team is going to need. He was an average high school player, and he walked on at Bowling Green State University, but he worked his way from scout team to team captain by his senior year. Scout team to first line in 4 years, actually. Played for Team USA under 20, and played in the Hockey World Cup after his senior season. Not big by hockey standards at 5'11", but he does have hockey skills that translate to the higher level. He's tough and has a high revving motor. Seth Colley, center/winger, 21 years old, does bring some experience here to this team. I think he's going to be a nice little solid player, just the type of player that just gets it done, knows how to win, going to be a good player for this building franchise. Let's move now to the defenseman side of things. We got Vladimir Fedorov, another Russian. He actually does know Josip Konstantinov, so this is kind of a little interesting little storyline here. He's an 18-year-old. They played against each other many times, and Josip actually was the bully to Vladimir Fedorov. How they're going to work on this now that they're on the same team, something that Peter Vaskie did not realize until he had announced that both guys made the team. But these dudes do have a little bit of bad blood. It's going to be interesting to see how they work it out. But the thing with Vladimir Fedorov as a defenseman, he is a more defensive defenseman. He's not an offensive defenseman. He's never been a really good scorer. His coaches have spent many years trying to cultivate his defensive potential, which has led to the lackluster production of his offensive side of his game. Vladimir takes great pride in stopping even the best scorers from just skating right up to the goal and attempting shots. He fights to make them earn it every single time. And once he learned about an opportunity to play in America for Alaska, this was his shot to compete against what the best players in the world have to offer. Another defenseman here, Joshua Bernard, an enforcer type of player, but he's an 18-year-old right side defenseman. He is 6'7", 290 plus pounds. He's a big boy, and he's just here to hurt people. That's it. He's just here to bring the pain. Not much else to say about Joshua Bernard. He's going to be our goon on this team. Jordan Albatross, a 22-year-old defenseman, 6'4", 220. He's another big guy on this team. And the thing with Albatross is that he is the hometown boy. He's from Fairbanks, Alaska, and he has always loved hockey more than football. So he's the type of guy that is going to lay the hit on opposing players, and he's going to try his best to be physical on the ice. He actually went and walked on to the University of Alaska Fairbanks and quickly made a name for himself for his work ethic and his raw IQ. Going to the Alaska Huskies after his sophomore year, where he won Great Northwest Athletic Conference Player of the Year. He also won Defenseman of the Year in that conference and First Team All-American in that conference, along with also going on the run of the century and making it to the Frozen Four, losing to Michigan 7-0 in that matchup. Jordan Albatross obviously has a lot of leadership qualities that Vaskie likes. He likes the fact that he is a hometown hero, something that's going to be able to sell a bunch of tickets when they first open the stadium at Ray West Airlines Arena. This is an obvious choice for Vaskie and the Alaska Huskies. Jordan Albatross has to be on this team, and he loves the combination of size, skill, and ability that Jordan Albatross possesses. We also have another player, Charles Chapman, on defense. He's 6'4", 230. He's got some size back there as well. He's going to be paired up with Jordan Albatross. Both of these guys are from Alaska. You can sell a bunch of tickets like that, right? It's going to be a nice little pairing between these two dudes. But the thing with Charles Chapman is he's actually from Vancouver. He came out here to Alaska because his daddy found out that he needed to move his kid away from highly populated areas. The kid was just such a bully. So naturally, Charles Chapman is more of that defensive defenseman. He's going to be kind of that guy that lays the boomstick on people, whereas Albatross kind of has it controlled and understands the game, and he leans more defensively, but he does have some offensive skill set. But Chapman's going to be that guy that complements Albatross, and given that they're both from Alaska, you could sell that from a PR move. That's going to give the hometown fans something to cheer for and something to root for when the big hit is laid down by Chapman and Albatross. So, yeah, it's going to be a nice little pairing between those two Alaska boys. The next two defensemen we're going to talk about are a little bit more offensive-minded. 23-year-old Miles Kinnick, born in Iowa. He was actually born in one of the worst recorded snowstorms in the history of Iowa. And for some reason, this always stuck with him. He could always fascinate about what it was like. His parents would tell him exactly how it was, what the weather was like. And he loved the fascination around this, that he ended up falling in love with winter and hockey to boot. And after he saw the 2003 Stanley Cup Finals, he knew that this was something he had to do. He found a love for hockey. He would constantly play with his best friend Blake, was in the conversation for possibly being drafted in the NHL. Blake got injured after being hit in the eye with a stick. So now, as Blake cannot play anymore, Miles plays on for his best friend and his love for the game and his love for ice. Our second to last defenseman is Ernest Hemingway. He's 24 years old as well, so we have two of the elder statesmen here, Miles Kinnick and Ernest Hemingway. Both guys on the defensive side. Hemingway is a little short. He's 5'9". And you know, as a guy that's 5'9", you're gonna try to throw your body around as much as you can to kind of set the tone that you're gonna be a scrappy little fighter. And that's exactly what Ernest Hemingway likes to do, even though he is a little more offensively minded, because he kind of has to be. But he's not afraid to throw his body around when he feels like he's being pushed around. He spent his entire childhood on the ice, from pond games with his family to Pee-wee leagues and up. From the beginning, he was a great player, but never really reached team star status. On every team he played on, he was more of a quiet addition to the team. Never one to really go out of his way to score, but he had an affinity to causing chaos for the other team, especially when it came to sticking up for his teammates, which is something that obviously Peter Vaskie really, really loves. His senior year in college, he actually helped UVM to a championship, but sadly, his skills never garnered attention from NHL teams, and he thought his hockey career was over until he heard about the second team joining the league, replacing the Arizona Coyotes, along with the Seattle Krakens being the expansion team. He missed out in the expansion draft. He was not taken. He was not even looked at, but he figured this was a perfect opportunity to join the Alaska Huskies. He tried out, he ended up making the team, and it's now or never for Ernest Hemingway. Last defenseman we're going to talk about here is Dean Willis, a 21-year-old defenseman, 6'5", 250, enforcer type from Boulder, Colorado. He's going to bring the pain. He's going to bring the physicality on that defensive side of things. So the thing with Dean Willis is that he's not offensively gifted whatsoever. He is probably going to be a reserve player on this roster for right now. He's probably maybe going to be spending some time in the AHL level. And he might be bouncing back and forth between when the team needs him and when they don't. And the thing with Dean Willis is that he was actually a boxer. And once his boxing gym actually closed down, he made the transition over to hockey. He just had a natural talent on the defensive end and leading his recreational team to an undefeated record. But when he transferred over to competitive hockey, things took a turn for the worse. And after dominating his first two games, the parents on the other teams made a petition to get him banned from the league because he was causing too many injuries. He was just too tough. He was just too rough and tough. A few years later, Dean went on to high school. And unknown to him, his rec coach was the coach of the high school team. And after seeing him in the hallways, the coach encouraged Dean to try out for the team, not letting the ban and not letting the peer pressure get to him about achieving his dreams of playing hockey. Eventually, he would rise up on the ranks in his junior year of high school, and Dean committed to play hockey at Denver University. Now Dean has made his way to the NHL and is ready to bring the pain. Let's talk now about the goaltenders, the masked men, one of my favorite positions to talk about. We got Corey Jaguar. Yes, you made a connection there. Jaguar. Is he related to Jean Sebastian? Well, apparently Corey thinks that he is. He has a theory that he's related to Jean Sebastian Jaguar. He went to a lot of Ducks games. His mom was always wearing his jersey, but there's been no confirmation that he's actually his dad. But he became a massive Anaheim Ducks fan, and he played in a little league in Anaheim, and he often went to Ducks games as a kid, as I mentioned. But he was bad as a kid, which made a lot of people think that maybe he wasn't actually related. He didn't get the good genes down the line, and he wasn't good as a teenager either, and he wasn't good in high school either. So he went on to Europe to play over there and ended up being a star. He was the best goalie in Finland at age of 18. And he's just glad that he's finally getting a shot to make it into the NHL. After he heard about Peter Vaskie's tryout for Alaska, he knew that he had to hop on and perform well, and perform well he did. He ended up making the team, and Peter Vaskie, quote, said, "Corey is an interesting cat. He has got a lot of potential. I can see it. I can see the want. I can see the drive. I don't know for sure if Corey's going to make the club or not, if he's going to start in the AHL, or if he's going to make it here as a backup goaltender, potentially. I'd like to carry 3 goaltenders for this team to see what we have. We have 4 currently, and a tough decision is going to have to be made." Next goalie, we got Dirk Van Riegen, another 24-year-old player. So he is, again, one of those elder statesmen on this roster. He's going to be kind of that veteran goaltender in the room. Now, again, with Peter Vaskie not sure which goalie's going to be cut, Dirk Van Riegen might be the guy that does get to stay just because of the veteran presence that he brings. The thing with Dirk, he was drafted a long time ago, but was cut from most rosters for being virtually unimpressive. He went back home to Germany, and he then dominated in Germany, and even participated in World Cup and Olympic play. He finally has another shot at the league, and he wants to seize it. It's starting to get to a point at 24 years old where a lot of teams that are in this situation, like the Alaska Huskies, are probably not going to be looking for a goalie that's a little bit older. Eventually, you might want to get there once you start becoming competitive and you have a need for a veteran type of goaltender. On a team that you know that's going to be bad, you can go one or two ways. You can have a older goalie that can kind of mentor or lead, but there's no future in playing a little bit of an older goalie. There's just no point. So Peter Vaskie understands this, and that kind of leans toward Dirk Van Riegen making the team. But with Dirk having a virtually unimpressive performance in his NHL career, minor league hockey career, the experience that he has just might save him. Isaac Lopez, a 19-year-old goaltender, butterfly goalie type. He's 5'11". And something we've noticed about Peter Vaskie's roster construction, he likes size, something that Lopez doesn't necessarily have. Now, when quoted, Isaac Lopez says, "I know the knock against me is my size in the net, and the way the NHL is going, teams like to have goaltenders that are a little bit bigger, covering up more of the net. But I know what I can do. I'm confident in my ability. I have a contortionist type of skill set. I'm able to maneuver quickly and react very fast. I don't have a lot of weight behind me in order to try to stop incoming pucks that are flying at the speed of a bullet." So Isaac Lopez has confidence, and that's something that Vaskie loves in his goaltenders. So while he had taken a little bit of a hit here with the size, Vaskie does like the tenacity and the bulldog mentality that Isaac Lopez possesses. This is namely why he ended up making the team. Whether or not Isaac Lopez is the one that's cut, whether Jaguar or Van Riegen are the ones that are cut or they stay, Neil Till is the one goalie that will be the starter, as quoted by Peter Vaskie. Neil Till is a playmaker. He has the athleticism, the size that I like at 6'3", 225. He's a hybrid type of goalie. He's going to be able to give us the best shot to win each game at the NHL level. I want to see what each goalie has to offer in the next few exhibition games that are upcoming, but I do see that Neil Till is going to be the starter for our team. Now, what that means for the other three, you can only keep three. One guy's got to get cut. Not sure who it's going to be, but Neil Till is safe. And the backstory of Neil Till, he is actually the younger brother of San Francisco Grizzlies third baseman Will Till. So this is the first time ever on the GG9 channel that we actually have a cross-universe merge, which is kind of cool. But early on, Neil Till, like his brother, was a really good defensive baseball player. He actually was a good defensive catcher, but he never felt comfortable with the bat in his hand and would rarely ever get on base or get a hit. So one day, the hockey coach actually convinced Neil Till to play goalie after being such a great defensive catcher, and the team wasn't necessarily playing him on the baseball diamond. Neil Till said, "I might want to consider playing hockey." He still has plenty of work to do, but his acrobatic style and highlight level saves are extremely fun to watch, and this is exactly what he has done ever since donning a hockey uniform and those goalie pads when his high school coach came calling. He uses his athleticism to be able to get past his technical skills, which are a little bit lacking, but he's relied on his ability to improvise and use that athleticism and reaction time in order to make highlight level saves. Neil Till, definitely the guy that we want back there in net, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be fun to watch. Just got to not let him get peppered. Now let's talk about the reserves, and the meet the team phase of this is all completed. You guys will know exactly who's on the roster, but as far as the reserves go, we have a couple players to talk about. We have Juice Boxer, a center/left wing. He's 6 foot tall. He's 21 years old. Again, a little bit on, maybe on the older, little on the older side. For for this team specifically. Now, he's just coming out of college. He was just graduated. He's all done. But not much is known about Juice Boxer. He played at a small school in Illinois, and no one really knows, where did he come from? He just kind of showed up one day and dropped his bags and said, I'm here to play. The funny thing about Juice Boxer is he's got gray hair. We don't know if he's actually 21. So we're just going to run with it. Our last reserve is actually going to be Ismail Bezapany. Parents had to actually evacuate from Chernobyl after nuclear meltdown and move to Kiev, Ukraine. He then moved to Canada when he was 16 to find safety from the war with Russia, where he joined the junior leagues and rose up the ranks into one of the hottest prospects in the game. Where he stands with the Alaska Huskies is a bench role at this point. He's going to be scratched just like Juice Boxer is going to be. He's going to have to come in, give some guys some days off, and help out with the fatigue rating. Bezapany looks like he's got some skills, he's got some tools to work with. However, the potential, the time spent is really the question mark. How often is he going to get on the ice, and how is he going to be able to make an impact? Is he going to be one of those players that has to get a full-time status job in order for him to start making an impact, or is he one of those players that is actually better suited for a developmental role where he can actually spot start every now and then and get the same type of production? The rest is still yet to be seen. We'll have to find out with Bezapany how he's going to handle this type of job. So that is your first look at what the roster is going to look like here for year number 1 in 2021 for the Alaska Huskies. As you guys kind of caught on with, it's all custom players. That's because that's what I really wanted to do. I really wanted to create a custom team from scratch and have us have a grind to become one of the best teams in the NHL. Now, as you know, people that have played NHL series before, they don't actually give you the opportunity to edit any player once you're inside a franchise, which sucks because, as you guys know on this channel, I like to be able to get custom prospects into our series. But with NHL, once you draft a player, you can't change his name. You can't change his attributes. You can't change his information. He is who he is, which therefore means you can't create custom prospects inside a franchise mode. The only way that you can do it is if you create players at the main menu and get the roster constructed right then and there, which is why the storyline of taking over Arizona Coyotes had to happen so that we could get these players on the team to start the franchise mode in year number 1. You also can't create custom draft classes within NHL 22, which also sucks because then, again, you can't have custom players. So moving forward with this series, there is no way for me to actually add new players of your guys's into the game. So this roster that's been constructed with all these creative players, I hope that the storylines caught on with some of you, that you might be able to attach yourself to a specific player if you like him, or if you have a favorite player, let me know in the comment section below. I kind of like the backstories that were given here by our patrons, by those that had an open submission in Discord. And those are just part of little Discord perks that you guys can have if you're part of this community. And I feel like this is going to be a really nice series, nice little casual type of series. Now, what's next is next time I see you guys with the Alaska Huskies episode, we are actually going to have some exhibition games against the Western Hockey League, which is a part of it's a hockey league up covering most of Canada, British Columbia, Alberta. And really what we're trying to do here is see what these guys can do on the ice, right? Peter Vaskie has constructed this team now. He has put this team together, but you need to know what players can do what together, what players work best together. And then eventually we might have a little surprise in there. We actually have to play an NHL team at the very end. And it's going to be interesting to see how these guys do against fairly similar competition. If they get blown out, if we blow them out, or how close is the gap? What is the skill gap between the Huskies right now at 60 to 65 overall players? What's the skill gap between them and WHL? And then what's the skill gap between that and the NHL? That's going to be an interesting thing to cover in the next episode, guys. So leave a like if you like this thing. What player or players did you like hearing a storyline from? Who are you looking forward to watching in gameplay? I will see you guys in the next episode. Leave a like if you like this thing, and make sure to turn on that notification bell so you do not miss a single Huskies upload. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. As always, thank you for watching, and peace.